How's it going, everybody? My name is Jesse, and welcome back to Male Nurse Mentor. Today, I'm diving back into the pre-nursing phase, and I'm going to be answering the most commonly asked questions. So use the timestamps down below, jump around from question to question. I think I have 5 total. So let's go at them one at a time, and I hope this is helpful. So friends, a question I often get asked, and I try to answer in a way that it is pretty simplified. It is this: when the whole pre-nursing phase is very overwhelming, people tend to ask, where do I begin? How do I start? What is the first thing you would do? So friends, to answer this question, I'm going to answer it like this. So if you're at the beginning of your pre-nursing journey, right, maybe you don't know exactly where to begin. You're overwhelmed with the process. And this also doesn't matter whether you're already in college and you're trying to pivot or you're graduating from high school. I recommend this thing for both of you, for everybody. And it is to find nursing schools in your area, the ones that realistically you would attend, right, if you were accepted. Pick one, pick a few, and then actually research into those programs. This is pretty much where you begin. Once you're there on those websites and those schools, each school is going to have a list of requirements. Oftentimes it's going to be prerequisites as part of that list of requirements. Those prerequisites are going to be like science courses, chemistry, math, English, things like that. Those are going to be your prereqs. And that is really where you start. So the school itself is going to have pretty much the blueprint that you need to follow, right? In terms of the actual steps that you need to complete, right? Like from a checklist. The blueprint that I tend to help students with has other components involved, right? In terms of how to get the best grades, how to space out your classes, things like that. But they give you pretty much the treasure map on how to get into their program. And if you really do need help with this, friends, with this part here itself, I do have a free ebook. I can link it down below on my website. It's a free ebook. I think it's pretty helpful. I broke down this whole process of trying to get into nursing school in 8 steps. I try to make it as simple as possible, but just in summary, like, where do you begin? That is where you begin. You identify a nursing school, look at the list of requirements. It's going to include prerequisites, and just kind of work backwards from there, trying to knock out all those requirements, all those prereqs. And then when you do that, then you kind of are ready to apply. And it's not that simple. I know it's not that simple, but that is the most simplified way to look at it, especially at the beginning of this journey, which is very overwhelming. I get it. So for this next question, friends, in this pre-nursing phase, what is the most crucial, critical part to get right during this stage? For me, just from what I've seen, from my own experience, GPA. GPA, GPA, GPA. The grades in the classes that you get on those prerequisites, that is the most critical part to getting into a nursing program. I've seen students try to get healthcare experience, and you can have healthcare experience, like working as a CNA, doing other things like volunteering, and those things matter, but they won't matter when you're competing with the student who has all A's applying into the same program you are, especially if you have that experience, but your grades kind of took a hit. So the best thing that you could do to help yourself out, friends, in this pre-nursing phase is having a high GPA. And a little hint, right? I've mentioned it in videos before. Look at the school and the grading scale that they use. Some schools go based off half, like letter grade points, but the community college I went to, it was just full letter grade points. So an A was an A B was a B, and a C was a C, and so on. There's schools that do, you know, the A plus A minus, B plus B, B minus, and for every little letter grade, they give you a certain score for your GPA. So that's like a little thing that I just kind of noticed in my journey. So even though I had a low A, it was still an actual A. So like it was as if I got an A, right? Not an A minus, if that makes sense. So those are little things you can't control, but I figured I'd throw it out there if it connects to somebody. And for question number 3, friends, I put, what do I see as the most common mistake in this pre-nursing phase? I put nursing students not planning ahead or identifying a route or changing plans too often. I call it the importance of a blueprint. So I did mention kind of that treasure map that these schools give you. It's very basic, right? It's a checklist. You check off anatomy, check off physiology, check off chemistry, and sure, that is like a treasure map and a blueprint. But what I mean by this step, friends, and it's the most common mistake that I see. One, it's pivoting, right? But we can understand what that means. It's trying to go for your ADN, and then you go try to get your BSN, and then you're going for your BSN, and then you kind of switch for an ADN, and then you switch to an LVN, right? And then you're like, no, let me just do CNA, and you're just kind of pivoting around, right? I get it. I mean, we can understand why that happens, but that is pivoting, and that is a mistake I often see a lot of students make. Another one, right, which is the larger mistake that I see, it is students operating without an actual method, right, or a pattern path in place. I call this the blueprint, right? A blueprint for yourself. Look ahead. You know what the requirements are. You know what the prereqs are. Look ahead in terms of how you want to structure your semesters, which nursing programs are your main ones to focus on, and just kind of map out your approach. Decide if you're very early on in this process, I don't want to attend a university, right, in the early stages of my undergrad because it's just going to be more expensive. It might be harder to get into some of those prerequisite classes. I may have to join that university with a nursing major, which may be impacted, and I may not get in because whatever the reason is, maybe your GPA from high school. So in that, right, you decide I'm going to go to a community college, which I think is a smarter choice, a wiser choice. Classes are cheaper, somewhat easier to get in. It's okay if you don't have a nursing major assigned, you can still take those classes and things like that. From there, you're in community college and you kind of go into further detail. You're like, this first semester, I'm just going to take a little ease my way in, being a freshman, right, getting used to college. I'm not going to take my harder classes, and you probably can't. You might have to take some prereqs of anatomy, right? You might need to take a basic biology course to get into anatomy, and then into physiology and so on, right? So you're kind of mapping it out. You ease into it your first semester, okay, your second semester as a freshman. All right, I'm going to kind of up the ante a little bit. I think I can take anatomy now. I think I could maybe take statistics. I'm going to start to challenge myself and start to take some of these classes I need to knock out that checklist, right, that these nursing programs require. So from there, you start to really look ahead, right? Sophomore year, you start looking at your third semester, your fourth semester, and you're like, okay, I don't want to take this class with this class because it's going to overwhelm me. I need to focus on my A, right, getting that high letter grade. So I'm not going to take physiology and chemistry in the same semester. I'm going to space them out. I'll take physiology in the spring, chemistry in the fall of the next year, and you space them out. And you kind of use filler classes, right? And that's how you start to kind of map this thing out. But if you notice, every step of the way here, you started making decisions, right? Okay, university or community college? Community college. Okay, and then when you're going to start college, can I afford to not work? Do I have to work part-time? If so, what does my time look like? What does my financial support look like? In my semesters, how should I map these out? What classes should I take together? Which ones should I not? Which ones can I not take yet? Right? So you start to map out this blueprint. That is the biggest mistake that I see a lot of students make, is not thinking about this. And then eventually they get to that very last semester, right before they're ready to apply to nursing school, and they have everything kind of left, right? The hard classes, anatomy, physiology, or chemistry, right? And then they also have to still take their TEAS test, right? And maybe they barely have enough time to take their TEAS test just one time before they apply, rather than taking it earlier in the year. So they take it once and then maybe have another chance to take it again in case they don't like their score before they apply to nursing schools. So those are all little things, but they all add up to a big problem, right? Which is the common mistake I often see students make. So if any of this resonated with you, this is what I call the blueprint. This is what I also help students with on my website. If you're curious, go and check it out at californiaprenursing.com. And yeah, check it out. Maybe I can help you in some way, shape, or form, or hopefully at least for free, this video can help you out so you can kind of come up with one on your own. So now for this question number 4, friends, I have, for those already with a degree, how do you recommend they begin this journey? This is also a common question I often get, and let's kind of go all the way back to question number 1. I'm going to answer it the same way for the most part. At the very beginning, sure, you have a degree, but at the very beginning, locate a nursing school. See what their requirements are. You already have a degree, see what classes you have left to take that you haven't taken that a nursing school program requires you to take in order to get in. That's one facet to this. The other one is you could do an accelerated nursing program or like a dual degree nursing program. If you search that on Google, you'll find a few. Maybe you have one in your area. Oftentimes universities do have, in addition to like their BSN, they have an accelerated version. So in summary, I'd handle it the same exact way as I answered the very first one, even if you are already with a degree. I'd still approach it the same exact way at the very beginning. And then I'm going to wrap it up with this question, friends. This is the last question, number 5. Is it necessary to get healthcare experience during this pre-nursing phase? I'm just gonna be blunt and say no, not necessarily. You don't have to get experience, and I would not get experience. I would advise against it if it does cost you your GPA, like we mentioned earlier. For me, I only went to go get my CNA certificate only after I didn't get into nursing school the first time, in an effort to kind of plump up my whole application, right? So it looks more competitive. And just to be transparent, I never actually worked as a CNA. I did do the CNA program to get my certificate. Didn't even take the test at the end, because in my efforts, right? With my improved T-score, with my GPA, I was able to get into at least Chico State University's nursing program. But in an effort to plump up that application, if you have time, if you have mental bandwidth, right, I would do it. If you don't, I would focus more on your GPA and then your T-score and then experience, kind of in that order. If your GPA is a 4.0, you will stand out. And then your T-score is really high as well, that should make you a shoo-in into practically any nursing program. Or if you do find yourself just generally struggling with the T's or the GPA and there's nothing you could do about it, then sure, I'd recommend some experience, some volunteer experience, or working as a CNA for a year, or however long you have time for. And so that's going to be it, friends. Those are some of the 5 most commonly asked questions I get in the pre-nursing phase. If you have any other questions, leave a comment down below. I'd love to answer it for you. And friends, I know it continues to be a struggle to become a nurse. So many people want to go and be a nurse. I wish everyone could just go and be a nurse, right? Like why not? But it's not the case, and that's unfortunate. But hopefully through some of these videos, you can get little tips to help yourself out, because we do need more nurses. We need more of you out in the field. And if nothing else, we all deserve a good means to live in this life, which nursing provides an excellent work-life balance that I think is important, especially in today's economy and the way the world is moving, right? Finances shouldn't have to be one thing that, we worry about. Anyways, friends, I'll see you on the next video.